The rain had soaked through Walter Hayes' only dress shirt by mile 3. His borrowed leather shoes, a size too small, had already rubbed, blisters on both heels by mile 5. But he kept walking. At 42 years old, with a 6-year-old daughter waiting, at home and exactly $17 to his name. Turning back wasn't an option. Somewhere ahead, through the pre-dawn darkness and the storm, was a job interview that could change everything. Walter had set his alarm for 2:30 a.m., kissed his sleeping daughter Emma on the forehead, and left a note for Mrs. Patterson next door, who watched her in the mornings. The bus that was supposed to take him downtown had been canceled due to flooding. No buses meant no taxis in his neighborhood. His 12-year-old Honda had died 3 weeks ago, and he didn't have the $400 to fix it. So he walked 10 miles through a storm, because this was more than just a job interview. This was the difference between making rent and homelessness. This was the difference between Emma having a future or watching her father fail. The position was for a warehouse supervisor at Meridian Logistics, a company he'd researched obsessively in the public library. Good benefits, steady hours, enough pay that he could maybe, just maybe, start digging out from under the mountain of debt that Emma's medical bills had created. She'd beaten leukemia, his little warrior, but the victory had cost them everything. His wife, Sarah, hadn't been able to handle the stress and had left when Emma was 4. Since then, it had been just the two of them against the world. Walter arrived at the Meridian building at 6:47 a.m. His interview was scheduled for 9. He stood under the building's awning, trying to wring water from his shirt, attempting to make himself presentable. His resume, protected in a plastic bag inside his jacket, was miraculously dry. Small victories. He waited in the lobby, shivering, watching the building come to life as employees arrived, with their coffee cups and dry cleaning, their normal Tuesday mornings so different from his desperate one. At 8:45, a woman in her 50s with kind eyes approached the reception desk. "I'm here to see Walter Hayes," she said. "I'm Karen Rodriguez, HR Director. Mr. Hayes, would you like to come with me? We're running a bit ahead of schedule." Walter followed her to a small conference room, acutely aware of the squeaking sound his wet shoes made on the polished floor. Karen didn't mention his appearance, though he caught her glance at the water still dripping from his pants. The interview began normally enough. She asked about his experience, his strengths, his approach to team management. Walter answered honestly, professionally, drawing on his 15 years in logistics before. Emma's illness had caused him to miss too much work, leading to his layoff. Then Karen asked a question that wasn't on any standard interview script. "Mr. Hayes, I have to know, what happened this morning?" "You're clearly soaked through." Walter hesitated. He'd promised himself he wouldn't make excuses, wouldn't lean on sympathy. But something about Karen's direct, compassionate gaze made him tell the truth. "The buses weren't running due to flooding. My car's broken down. I walked from Riverside." Karen set down her pen. "That's 10 miles. "Yes, ma'am. I left at 3 this morning. I couldn't miss this opportunity." The interview continued, but Walter could see something had shifted in Karen's expression. After 30 minutes, she stood and shook his hand. "Thank you for coming in. We have several more candidates to interview this week. We'll be in touch." Walter walked back out into the rain, which had softened to a drizzle. He'd done his best. Now all he could do was walk home, pick up Emma from Mrs. Patterson, and wait. The walk back felt longer, his blistered feet screaming with each step. He stopped at a gas station and spent $3 precious on a hot coffee and a pack of Band-Aids for his heels. By the time he made it home, it was nearly noon. That afternoon, Emma helped him make mac and cheese from a box, chattering about her day at school. She'd drawn him a picture, a stick figure superhero with the word Daddy across the chest. He taped it to their refrigerator next to the past due notices and felt his throat tighten. She believed he was a superhero. He couldn't let her down. 3 days passed with no word from Meridian. Walter applied to 7 other positions, but the responses were all the same. Overqualified or underqualified, too much time away from work. On Friday afternoon, his phone finally rang with an unknown number. "Mr. Hayes, this is Karen Rodriguez from Meridian. Could you come to our office on Monday morning at 10? Walter's heart sank. They wanted to reject him in person, but he agreed, already calculating the bus fare now that the flooding had receded. Monday morning, Walter arrived 15 minutes early, this time on a bus wearing the same shirt but fully dry. Karen met him in the lobby, but instead of taking him to a conference room, she led him to the elevator. They rode to the 10th floor in silence. When the doors opened, she guided him to a corner office with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. Behind a large desk sat a woman Walter recognized from the company website, Jennifer Chen, founder and CEO of Meridian Logistics. She was 45, elegant in a navy suit with an expression that gave nothing away. "Mr. Hayes, please sit," she said. Walter's palms began to sweat. Whatever this was, it felt bigger than a standard rejection. Jennifer opened a folder on her desk. "I want to tell you a story," she began, and Walter noticed her voice had softened. 20 years ago, I was a single mother with a business degree and no experience. I had an interview at a company downtown. I was taking 3 buses to get there because I couldn't afford a car. The second bus broke down. I had to walk the last 4 miles in heels, carrying my infant son's diaper bag because I was going straight to daycare pickup afterward. I showed up 40 minutes late, disheveled and apologetic. She paused, and Walter saw something raw flash across her face. The CEO of that company, a man named Robert Stern, could have sent me away. Instead, he rescheduled my interview for the next day. And then he did something else. He handed me $200 and told me to take a taxi home and to my interview the next day. He said, "I'm not investing in your transportation. I'm investing in the principle that talent shouldn't be defeated by circumstance." Jennifer stood and walked to the window. "I got the job. But more importantly, Mr. Stern became my mentor. He helped me understand business, strategy, people. When I started Meridian 12 years ago, I made a promise. I would build a company where determination mattered more than circumstances, where a parent willing to walk 10 miles in the rain was exactly the kind of person we wanted on our team." She turned back to Walter, and now he could see tears in her eyes. "Karen told me about your walk. I pulled your background check and learned about your daughter, about your wife leaving, about your job loss. I also learned that you've never missed a child. Support payment to yourself, that you set up an automatic savings account in Emma's name and you contribute to it every month, even when it's just $5. Your references, even from the job you were laid off from, said you were the most reliable person they'd ever known." Walter couldn't speak. His vision was blurring. Jennifer sat back down. "Mr. Hayes, I'd like to offer you the warehouse supervisor position. $55,000 to start, full benefits that cover pre-existing conditions. But I'd also like to do something else." She slid an envelope across the desk. "That's a check for $3,000. It's not a loan. It's an investment in the principle that brought me here. Fix your car. Get Emma something special. Buy yourself shoes that fit." Walter stared at the envelope, unable to process what was happening. I can't." "You can and you will," Jennifer said firmly. "Because one day you're going to be in a position to do this for someone else. That's how this works. Robert Stern passed something to me. I'm passing it to you. And someday you'll pass it forward. That's not charity, Mr. Hayes. That's humanity." Walter took the envelope with shaking hands. Tears rolled down his face, and he didn't bother to hide them. "Thank you," he whispered. "You have no idea what this means." "I have every idea," Jennifer said gently. "I've been exactly where you are." That evening, Walter picked up Emma from school in a taxi, a luxury they'd celebrate just this once. He told her they were going to the park, her favorite place. As they sat on the swings, he said, "Emma, Daddy got a job, a really good job. Things are going to get better now." Emma threw her arms around his neck. "I knew you would, Daddy. You're my superhero." Walter held her tight, thinking about Jennifer Chen, about Robert Stern, about the chain of kindness that stretched backward and would now stretch forward. He thought about all the people in the world facing their own 10-mile walks, their own impossible mornings, and he made a promise to himself that one day, when his own circumstances improved, he'd be watching for them. He'd be the one extending a hand, because that's what superheroes do. They save people, not with capes or powers, but with compassion, with understanding, with the simple recognition that we all struggle, and we all deserve a chance to prove what we can do when someone believes in us. 3 months later, Walter was training new employees at Meridian. He'd created a reputation for being tough but fair. for seeing potential in people others overlooked. And in his wallet, next to Emma's school picture, he kept a worn piece of paper with Robert Stern's principle written in his own handwriting. Talent shouldn't be defeated by circumstance. It was a reminder that the walk hadn't ended that rainy morning. It had just begun, and now he was walking alongside others, making sure no one had to walk alone.